Now, this fight would have probably have been the co-main event had UFC in Anaheim not been canceled earlier this year. Ben Askren is making his long-awaited, long-anticipated UFC debut. Ben Askren has, for probably the last 10 years, been considered the best active fighter, not currently or never to compete in the UFC. There are many people who believe that Ben Askren is the best welterweight in the world. He's a former Bellator welterweight champion. He's a former one championship welterweight champion. He is as dominant of a wrestler as there can be. Like he is Habibish in terms of wrestling. Him and Tyron Woodley are very good friends. They wrestled together at Missouri. They will never fight each other, they said. So it's Askren's arrival is part of the reason Woodley is talking moving to middleweight. And also the fact he's 36 years old and he's just a big guy, and continue to making 170 pounds is harder and harder as the years go on. But Askren, I think Woodley is willing to step up to middleweight and let Askren do his thing at welterweight. But Askren's got to beat Robbie Lawler first. Now, Robbie Lawler hasn't fought in a while.
Yeah.
And I think I was already beginning to see some breakage in Robbie Lawler. Because you can only have so many wars.
Yeah.
Robbie Lawler hasn't fought in over a year. Last time he fought was in December of 2017. He lost a unanimous decision to Rafael dos Anjos. He got injured in that fight, and so he's been out all this time. Robbie Lawler is an old 36. He's an old 36. Definitely a knockout fighter, but he has 40 fights under his belt. He's been stopped by KO twice, submitted 5 times. He's had a long career with a lot of grueling fights. I don't know that. I mean, this is a very interesting fight because this is the first time we'll see Askren against a guy who is. I mean, it just depends on how you look at it, right? Andrei Koreshkov from Bellator was definitely considered a high level fighter, but Ben Askren beat him in 2013. Was he that guy yet? Douglas Lima is absolutely a high level welterweight, but Ben Askren beat him in 2012. Shinya Aoki is an outstanding grappler, one of the best grapplers you're going to ever find, but doesn't have the greatest striking, and Askren beat him in 2017, which was his last fight. So while he's been dominant, just smashing people left and right, 18-0 in his career, dominant collegiate wrestling background, we still haven't seen him in the UFC. And most people will say the UFC is the creme de la creme of the sport. So while my mind tells me Askren beats an older Robbie Lawler, you still have to wonder.
Yeah, I think when you look at the training that he has access to, I think sometimes when people are in those other leagues, the reason to be skeptical is because you don't know what kind of pedigree they're surrounded by on a regular basis. And it's case by case. I think in Askren's case, he, like you said, he's friends with Woodley. He's got the college pedigree wrestling, and is, eye test, outstanding wrestler no matter who he's fighting against. You can just see that he's got the strength, the technique, the stamina, everything you want in a wrestler, the hips, right? Like he's got it. So I think that he's the real deal, and I don't think it'll be a situation where he fights Lawler and he faces something he hasn't faced before. Even though he might not have faced it on a professional level, maybe you could argue, like you said, he's faced some quality opponents outside of the UFC. You could argue maybe he hasn't faced that in the ring, the octagon professionally. I think training-wise, he has. And I think he will get the job done.
Yeah, I would. You would have to think that training wise, he definitely has faced guys like that. And then it doesn't help that his friend Tyron Woodley
Knock
won,
Lawler out.
he knocked Lawler out, won the title against one.
Yeah.
I mean, the fight didn't last long, but
But that's still a camp of research. You know what I'm saying?
yes,
It's still data. And that's what I'm
yes,
saying. Like he has access to the data, he has access to the talent, and he has the talent himself. So I don't think this is a typical case of people cutting it up outside of the UFC and then coming in and seeing what they're made of. I do think this is one of those cases where it's just a guy who just hasn't been here. And now, he's here, but his talent is there.
yeah.
There's no doubt about
Daniel Cormier told him. He said, "Man, just make it easy, man. Just wrestle."
it.
Just wrestle. Because him and Dan Cormier have the connection because they're both Olympic level wrestlers. Because Askren
Mhm.
was, this far away from the Olympics. Is more like a technicality why he wasn't an Olympic wrestler. Many people consider him. Some people will argue that he is, if not the greatest, he's one of the like 5 greatest collegiate wrestlers of all time. Like he's on
Mhm.
that level of a wrestler, right? So he's like, dude, just make it easy, just wrestle. But the thing about Robbie Lawler is that Robbie has always been fantastic at at takedown defense,
Mhm.
always. And that's the thing. If he can keep the fight standing, does he have? Yeah, obviously, it drastically increases his chances of winning the fight. But keeping the fight standing against Ben Askren and keeping it standing against everybody else is two
Yeah, and
totally
Askren,
different things.
he's that kind of wrestler where he doesn't just dive, shoot, dive, shoot, dive, shoot. He's
No,
sticky. He's that
yeah.
sticky kind of wrestler.
Yes, yes. He gets
And
on your back and he rides you on whatever. It doesn't matter if it's a single. It doesn't matter what level of contact he gets. It's and the
and he's
thing of it
taking hits
is,
on the way in too. Like the
he
guy doesn't have a glass jaw or anything.
oh no, and
He's
his and
played.
he's accurate enough as a striker
Mhm.
and strong enough that you can't totally disregard the striking. Like he's not gonna knock you out on the feet, but it's enough to keep you honest and to have to defend. And if he can get you to defend the strikes on the feet, that's just enough of a preoccupation for me to take you down.
So what's
And
your prediction?
I think I got Askren in a late first round, early second round finish. It'll probably be a TKO from top position, or he'll take his back and flatten Robbie out and pound him that way. Um, and he'll or either he'll choke him out that way. But
Mhm.
I don't. It's very difficult to choke Robbie out. So because Robbie does do well in terms of defending submissions, that used to be an issue for him early, but he has really cleaned that up a lot. His submission defense. So yeah, I think that'll be interesting.